Hello and welcome to the Christ Lutheran Church Sermon Podcast. This is Matthew Best. I serve as pastor of Christ Lutheran Church in Allison Hill in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Thanks for being here. If today's message connects with you and what you're going through, brings you inspiration, or offers connection with God, I ask you to please stay on after the message for just a few moments to learn ways to connect with the congregation and the health ministries that we offer. And now, let's dive into God's Word. Our reading comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 18 to chapter 19. Then he took the 12 aside and said to them, "See, we are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written about the Son of Man by the prophets will be accomplished. For he will be handed over to the Gentiles, and he will be mocked and insulted and spat upon. After they have flogged him, they will kill him, and on the third day he will rise again." But they understood nothing about these things. In fact, what he said was hidden from them, and they did not grasp what was said. As he approached Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard a crowd going by, he asked what was happening. They told him Jesus of Nazareth was passing by. Then he shouted, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Those who were in the front sternly ordered him to be quiet, but he shouted even more loudly, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stood still and ordered the man to be brought to him. When he came near, he asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" He said, "Lord, let me see again." Jesus said to him, "Receive your sight. Your faith has saved you." Immediately he regained his sight and followed him, glorifying God. And all the people, when they saw it, praised God. He entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried down, and he was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, "He has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much." Then Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and save the lost." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I remember a couple of years ago, I love to read, and I was having trouble reading because I'm just at that age now. And went to the eye doctor. I'm having trouble reading, having trouble seeing things. They were getting blurry. And so doctor said, "Yep, sounds about right. You need readers." And I've been using them ever since, and I think my eyes are actually getting worse. Because now without the readers, I see black down here, but not a whole lot of, I can't read it, but I can tell you my distance. I can read on the rabbit, it says Happy Easter. I have amazing distant sight, which the doctor was like, "Wow, that's amazing." I was like, "Yeah, I'll take that." So I need glasses in order to see properly. And I think, use that metaphor, the idea of glasses. They help us to see, whether we're talking about reading or whether we're talking about just living anywhere. I don't know if you've ever been to some of these like parks or whatnot. They have those viewfinders that you can see really far, right? Or if you've got binoculars and you're standing on top of a mountain and you can see. These lenses help you to see. That's the whole point of why these lenses exist, to help us to see clearly. When I think about these readings, this is about helping us to see Jesus clearly. Sometimes we think that we're seeing Jesus clearly through all sorts of other lenses, like traditions or politics or culture, but oftentimes they're not giving us clarity of seeing Jesus. Oftentimes we need to keep adjusting our vision. In our first reading, so really this is so interesting. The Narrative Lectionary gives us these three stories together, and each one of them could be their own standalone story. But there's a theme that runs through them. And I really do think it's this ability to see and understand Jesus. In the first reading, you've got the disciples and Jesus. And, when you read this, he's taken the 12 aside and then he says, look, we're going up to Jerusalem, and everything that's written about the Son of Man by the prophets will be accomplished. He'll be handed over to the Gentiles. He'll be mocked, insulted, spat upon. After that, after they flogged him, they will kill him, and on the third day he'll rise again. And the disciples are like, what? What? I don't get it. What are you talking about? I don't know how much clearer Jesus could be, honestly. I read that and I'm like, why? What? But the key part is they didn't understand. In fact, it was hidden from them. It was hidden from them. And there's two things going on with this. One, what Jesus is saying doesn't meet the expectation of what they want, of what a Messiah is. They have an expectation of somebody who's strong, who's going to come, and who's going to throw off Rome. This is the third time that Jesus has made this prediction, and it doesn't match up. The other part is, I think their lenses were taken off so that they could not see who Jesus really was. Because if it did, it might scare them too much. Because especially he says, take up your cross later in another section. Take up your cross and follow me. You're going to go to death. That's kind of scary. That could scare some folks, I think. So there's two things going on with this. They don't have the right lenses on. They're not expecting to see a suffering servant as somebody who is going to suffer, be handed over, be crucified. They don't know what to make of that. When you get to the second story, they're approaching Jericho, and there's a blind man who's sitting on the roadside begging, and the reality is he's the only one who can see. He can see Jesus very clearly. And I mentioned this in the adult Bible conversation, that there's a whole belief system going on where the man sees himself as something must have happened that he turned blind. Because at the end it says, I want to see again. He could see before something happened, and then he couldn't. And the belief at that time is, well, you must have done something. You must have sinned. Therefore, you can't see. Because we love to have reasons for why stuff happens. But Jesus is coming through, and he asks the crowd, what's going on? I hear the crowd coming through. I hear there's something going on. What's going on? And they say, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. So he shouts, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And they say, shh. Quiet. So I love this guy. So he shouts louder. He's got nothing to lose. He has nothing to lose. And Jesus hears him and brings him over. What do you want? What do you want from me? That's what he asks. Lord, let me see again. He says, your faith has saved you, and he gets his sight back. He sees who Jesus really is. While he's blind, he has the right lens to see who Jesus really is. Now, I don't know if he knew about the first sermon that Jesus gave. Remember back many chapters earlier in Luke, it was the Jesus inaugural sermon where he quotes Isaiah. He's going to bring sight to the blind and proclaim good news to the poor and set the captive free and all that type of stuff. This is what Jesus has been doing. Jesus has a reputation at this point that even this guy, this blind beggar, knows who Jesus is. Word has been spreading. He has a lens. He had insight before he had eyesight. He saw Jesus as mercy, as healer. He saw all the things that Jesus had said that he would be. And he put all of his hope in that. The crowd, on the other hand, I kind of think the crowd saw Jesus as a celebrity. And I think in some cases, that's safer. I think we've done this in Christianity for a long time, where we've turned Jesus into something that's untouchable, too distant, too far away, as opposed to Jesus right in our midst, who touches us, who sees us, who talks with us, who sees our hearts, who sees the pain and the suffering that we have and offers healing with a healing touch. Ooh, that's dangerous, because then we might have to respond. The crowd wants their safety. They want the celebrity to come through, but do they want Jesus the healer, who actually will change things? I don't know. I think in some cases the church as a whole, I'm talking about the larger church, has kind of made Jesus a bit unapproachable over the years, centuries. And then you get the story of Zacchaeus. Oh, what an interesting story. Zacchaeus, he is a tax collector. That's a key thing. He's working for Rome. He's wealthy because he's skimming money off the top of the taxes in order to be rich. Rome doesn't care as long as it gets its money. So that means he's also an outcast in his own society. He is a Jew who is turned against Jews. I think part of what Luke is doing in saying that he was short in stature was not just that he is physically short, but he is short in terms of getting any type of respect, short on relationships, short on a whole lot of stuff. So he climbs the tree to see Jesus because, again, Jesus, the word is spreading about Jesus. And what's the biggest complaint that so often is made about Jesus? Who does he spend time with? Tax collectors and sinners. Zacchaeus is like, well, that's me. Maybe I got a shot. Maybe. I want to go see this guy who spends time with people like me. So he climbs a tree because he just wants to see the man. And Jesus, walking by, looks up in the tree and knows Zacchaeus' name. That's fascinating in and of itself. Come on down, I'm going to go to your house. And of course, what do we hear? The grumbling. All who saw it began to grumble. Grumble, grumble, grumble. He's gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner. There it is again. Oh, that Jesus is spending time with people who we shouldn't be spending time with. He shouldn't be spending time with the tax collectors. He shouldn't be spending time with the sinners. He shouldn't be spending time with the people who need health care. He shouldn't be spending time with the undocumented folks. He shouldn't be spending time with this, that, and the other person. It's just not proper. That's what we hear. And yet he does. And I think the most interesting thing about this is it changes Zacchaeus' prescription of how he sees. Jesus doesn't tell him to do any of the stuff that he does, but he's been impacted by this encounter with Jesus, that it moves him, at least to say these things. We don't know if he actually does them or not, but that's not the requirement. Jesus doesn't say, well, when you're done selling half, like you said, and restoring and all that, then you'll have salvation. Nope. Kind of unfair. Instead, he says, today salvation has come to this house. This desire to see Jesus, to truly see him, leads to radical change. He gets a new pair of glasses, a new set of lenses. How are we seeing Jesus? There are those who see Jesus through lenses of comfort, power, tradition, who knows whatever else. And there are those who see Jesus through a lens of compassion, justice, and mercy. The blind man cried out. He saw Jesus as mercy. Zacchaeus wanted so desperately to see him, a man who would spend time with sinners and tax collectors. And both refused to be silenced. Both refused to be blind. I think there's a couple of examples on both of these of what prescription is being used. There's lots of examples. I think the example of a prescription that's used that's seeing Jesus one way is the idea of Christian nationalism. Sees Jesus as a tool to power. Sees Jesus and says, well, we need to force people into doing this or that, or not doing this or not doing that. It's a lens that says that we need to ban books and we need to tell people where they can go to the bathroom and what history they can learn and all that type of stuff. It's a lens in which it's okay to pull people out of their lives with masked agents not identifying who you are and making people disappear. Those are lenses. Those are not new lenses. That lens has been around for a long time. It just happens to be that we're experiencing it. That type of lens, I'd really love to just crush the lens. Drop it on the ground and crush it. But I don't have the power to do that. None of us do. So the question is, what do we do? What glasses, what lenses do we look through? I think we look through a very different lens. I don't think it's, in one sense, I keep going back to that first story. Jesus is pretty clear. And I just wonder, for some of these folks who have that lens of Christian nationalism, is it being hidden from them? Maybe they're the crowd who are telling people to be quiet, and they don't even realize it. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know how someone can hear Jesus' words and see through a lens of cruelty and violence and force. I don't know. I don't get it. Instead, we are called to see through a different lens. And I think, there's plenty of examples here at Christ Lutheran. I've said them so many times. There's plenty of examples. You got the health ministries that I don't know how many people literally have been impacted, and I say encountered Jesus and gotten healing. And I don't know how many people you all in Power of the Hill have encountered and given social justice to. And just talk about encountering Jesus. And I don't know how many people have been in this congregation over the years since 1890 and have encountered Jesus in so many different ways. I want to share one last story with you because it's a story for me, it's a little personal, of when I think about seeing Jesus through a different lens. It's one that helped me to see Jesus clearer. It goes back to my previous call when I was at St. Stephen. And my first day when I got there was a gentleman living under the pavilion at the church. They had a pavilion. And I went and introduced myself to him, and I knew him from before seminary. His name is Michael. He would come to Project Share when I worked at Project Share, which is the food pantry in Carlisle. And Michael had been perpetually homeless at that point for 19 years. Long history and all of that. And Michael opened my eyes to the homelessness in the area. And so he had told me about the folks living in their cars at the truck stop. And so I told some folks in the church, hey, there's people living in the truck stop 2 miles down the road. What do you want to do? Kept talking and finally decided we should go over there. Okay, sounds good. If that doesn't sound crazy, we didn't know what we were going to do. Well, we went over. We had a conversation with the manager, and then we started going over. First time was at midnight, because that's when people come inside. Why truck stop? Well, there's food, there's laundry, there's showers. It's everything that people need to survive. And we would come over twice a month, doing laundry with people, making sure they could get a shower, and then go over to Denny's and share a meal. And that kept going, and that kept building and growing. And at some point, we started doing worship in the midst of the meal. And I just remember at one point, we were kind of set up at the back of Denny's, long table. It was kind of like, the famous painting of the Last Supper, except we were on both sides of the table, right? 40 people in Denny's in the evening, folks who are homeless, truckers passing through, members of the congregation. We would all just be there. We would be sharing a meal. We would be worshiping together. Very informally, but it was still. And I remember just being moved as saying, this is like the foretaste of the feast to come. Here's Jesus, right in our midst. Here's Jesus, sitting around with us, sharing stories, offering healing, mourning with people. Here's Jesus. It gave me the lens to see. I think one of the most powerful moments in that was we would do communion, and I would ask for a piece of bread from the back and get some grape juice and put it in a coffee cup, because that's what we had. And I would always ask, does somebody help me with the distribution of communion? And the waitress, we had a regular waitress, and she said, I'd like to do that. I've never been in church before, but I want to help. Great. Awesome. Here's what you do. We'd walk around, and she was so moved to tears by just helping with communion. It was so powerful. I think we're given lenses. We're given lenses to help us see Jesus at different points in our life. That was one point in my life, and that's why I'm here now. That lens allowed me to then come here. We all have our own lenses. We've all been given glasses, lenses that help us see Jesus in points of our life. These are difficult times. That's not news to anybody. Jesus is giving us all lenses now. Jesus is helping us, giving us lenses so that we can see him, because there's no way we're going to get through this without seeing Jesus. Where are you seeing Jesus in the midst of all that's going on? Put those lenses on. Thanks be to God. Thank you again for listening to the Sermon Podcast. I'm always happy to have a conversation or pray with you. Please reach out either by email to pastor@christharrisburg.org or call me at 717-236-8382. I'd also invite you to be part of worship on Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m. We're a very diverse, open, affirming, and laid-back congregation. Christ Lutheran Church is located at 124 South 13th Street in Harrisburg. Parking is along the street. You can enter the building through the side entrance on South 13th Street or at the corner of 13th and Thompson Streets. And lastly, check us out on the web. Our website is christharrisburg.org. There you can learn more about and offer your support for the congregation, as well as the health ministries and free clinics that we provide to people in need in our neighborhood. I invite you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, also at Christ Lutheran Harrisburg. Thank you. I look forward to connecting with you, and I pray that you have a blessed week.